You have arrived at America's most patriotic Christian broadcast. We're bringing it to you live tonight, right here in the great state of South Carolina, our nation's last conservative stronghold. Welcome to God's country. It's fixing to get on up in here tonight. Here on this broadcast, it's a little bit different. We stand on these founding principles: our faith, our families, and our freedoms. And each one of them, we would gladly lay down our lives for. You ask why? Because we're patriots. So get on the phone tonight and call another person. Text them up. Tell them, hey, the U.S. Patriot Pastor's home. Hey, I'm Dr. Rick Cope, and we want to welcome you tonight to God's Country Podcast. Let's do this. Warning, this is a liberal warning. If you as much as lean left in your recliner, you're going to get offended tonight. So don't blame me if you get your feelings hurt. We're just dropping the truth in a fake news world while watching our nation fall apart right in front of our eyes. It's our job to bring this to a new generation, picking up where our founding fathers left off to secure our children's future of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right here on God's country. Brought to you by Grits, the road rage remedy. Well, good evening, Vietnam. That's how I used to say it back in the day. It's the Patriot Pastor right here, Rick Cope. Glad to have you back on with us. It's good to be back. It's been a great summer, and it's been hot, but feel that cool air in the wind, and I'm telling you, I'm feeling like $1 million tonight, and it's good to be here. A lot happening since we saw you guys last. And we are going to try to catch you up to date as much as possible. There surely is not enough time tonight on this broadcast. But America's hopping, and the church is on the move, and Jesus is coming. Somebody put some hearts up if you believe that. Tonight, we are brought to you live tonight by our special guest and our host and our sponsor tonight. We love these guys. They're at Chosen Comfort, the heat and air system right here for the two Carolinas. Call these guys for all of your specialty needs as far as your heat and air goes. It's fall in the air, maybe time to service up your units or whatever, and I'm glad for the change. Believe me, South Carolina's teeter-totting on that cool wind, and all you deer hunters out there, somebody give me a big hooah. And it's time to get the bows out, the September range, and to all my hunting friends and 2A guys out here, Second Amendment, we're just glad to have some friends on the comment section. If you're glad to be a Christian tonight, an American patriot tonight, and you believe there's hope for this nation, just put some flags up in that comment and say there's hope, Rev. And we're going to get right on in this tonight. Well, there's a lot been happening. School's back in session, and unfortunately, right out of the gate, we're already hearing of the tragedy that happened down in Georgia. This school was hit by a lone gunman. 4 people were killed, 2 students, 2 teachers. Our prayers are out tonight and have been for the last few days with all this breaking news that's going on and the effects that it has, ripple effects across America. 4 lives, 4 families were changed forever in that school shooting in Georgia, and we do not want to make light of that whatsoever. I have been studying the effects of school shootings and all of this since Columbine. I was a youth director for many years working with young people. And I learned a lot just looking into it. Many times on the outset, you don't understand why things like this happen. The only thing that we can tell you is that there is really an evil in this world, and there is a prince and power of darkness. And that prince and power of darkness has got a lot of control over the minds of our young people today. I really believe with all my heart the video game and social media industry has literally corrupted and polluted the minds of our young people. I was speaking to our church not too long ago and telling the parents how much I believe technology has stolen America's youth, has stolen the innocence of young people, getting outside and enjoying the great outdoors and just learning to work and move with their hands, using their minds. Well, technology has taken all of that. The video game industry of guts and gore and all the killing and all this has really just taken some minds that are already somewhat in a hard mental state, and a desperate child in the wrong hands can lead to destruction. Now, the Bible says that a child left to himself brings his mother to shame. And I believe that's what we're seeing in this incident. I don't believe at all it has anything to do with guns. And right out of the bat, you got your lobbyists and all of your left-wingers and libertards out here trying to blame a gun. And I think it's just absolutely ludicrous. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. And I think the more that we realize what is behind this, what's causing this, the more off we are to be equipped for the hour that we're in. I don't know if you've been catching up with this and how this has went down. It's Friday. We are recording. This is launched on Monday night. But today it's already come across the news that they locked up the dad of the 14-year-old boy who committed this heinous crime. Once I studied into it and looked into it, I think rightfully so. Here's why. The FBI had came to this father and said, your son has been online talking about a school shooting. The next line says, do you have any weapons in the house? He says, yes. Does your son have access to these weapons? He says, yes. There's no ammo in them, but he does have access. Automatically, why the father took to the defense of the child is beyond me. If you show up at my house and you're implicating my child in a school shooting conversation, the first thing I'm doing is telling the cops to hold on a minute. Let me go lock some stuff up if it's not. It should already be locked up. But having said that, he knew it. It was brought to his attention. And then he went on to say, hey, I bought him this gun as a Christmas gift. And that's common, especially where we live in the South. That happens. But what is not common is to give it to them and then give it to them with full access. We buy them the guns. It's just a heritage thing to hunt with and to target practice with, but they're locked away until they're responsible enough to begin to use them. So that's not uncommon that you buy a young person a gun. I think I got my first one when I was like 16 years old, squirrel hunting and all that kind of stuff, but under supervision. So it's not uncommon to do that. But what was so astonishing about this case was that not only did he buy it for the young man, but he gave him access to it. And that alone is incriminating. You cannot take a weapon and hand it over to a child. He's not ready for that. He's not in the frame of mind for that. I believe that you should spend time with him. I believe that if you're going to give your kids weapons, then you're going to have to be the enforcer of that and let them know the precautions of that. And back when I was in school, here's how much it's changed. We had a gun safety course. Coach Moore in Indiana High School, kudos to these guys that brought us up in our generation, took us through a gun safety class. The law enforcement come in, our DNR department come in. We actually shot the weapons on the school grounds. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how much times have changed? Went down to the football field, set up a trap, skeeting shoot. We shot shotguns. We shot 22s at targets, all under supervision of law enforcement, DNR, and our faculty at the school. No one ever got hurt. Not one person ever got hurt. Having said that, a few years ago when the Florida shooting took place there, I was deeply moved to try to do something. And so I created a plan, and I put it out on a web, and just was like a video presentation of what we could do to start changing the course of our school systems. Well, some local officials got a hold of this and said, I believe the governor of our state, Henry McMaster here in South Carolina, needs to hear this. So I was invited to a summit. And the reason I'm telling you this is not to elevate my platform, but to challenge pastors today, to challenge leaders today, to speak to your government officials about what we did. I want to tell you how this went down. I was called down to the Capitol, and crazy as it sounds, I'm on my way to the Capitol to discuss the Parkland school shooting. The governor had called a summit meeting of the SLED, law enforcement, educators, and mental health. And then there was people like myself who were citizens and leaders in the community who were also invited. This was a crowd of about 100 people, I would say, in this audience. Private setting, pretty much. A lot of the state house and senators and all of that was there. But on my way, I received a phone call. And I'm going to tell you how this went down. You talk about God putting an amen on what you're doing. We get there. The news is there. They interviewed me on the sidewalk. Want to know the church's stand, where do we stand in our community kind of thing. So we go on in after that. And they're hearing from everyone. And the governor wants to hear from the citizens. He hears from the officials a lot. And I had listened to mental health. I had listened to educators. I had listened to SLED. And basically you had to tell where you're from and your name and where you're from. And I just basically said my name and Indian Land, South Carolina. And when I said that, the cameras turned to me very swiftly because we have the fastest growing community in the state of South Carolina. I believe Indian Land now is up to about 50,000 citizens, and it's not even a town. And so this is a large presence here, and it's fast, and it sits on the state lines, and so we get a lot of influx from all over the country. And when I said that, I said, here was my statement to them. I said, everything that I've heard is wonderful. I haven't heard anything wrong from the educators, from the mental health professionals, or even law enforcement. I said, but we have a problem. And the problem is that when I grew up, every boy in the school had a gun hanging in his truck because we were going hunting as soon as school was out. We're going to get our homework done, but we got to go kill and grill something. We all going deer hunting, rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, whatever we did. But it wasn't uncommon to have guns hanging in our truck whatsoever. And many of the guys of I hate to use this word. Tim, am I old now? Is that an older generation? I don't know what you would call that, but my generation graduated 84 at Indian Land. I know may seem like Stone Age, but it wasn't that long ago. But we never had one school shooting. It wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even you couldn't wrap that in your head, I'm going to go get a gun and shoot somebody at school. You just didn't think that way. And I was telling the governor this, and I said, what we have is a culture problem. And I said, sir, do you know how long it takes to change a culture? It literally takes a lifetime, and we don't have a lifetime. What we were talking about is, should we arm the teachers? Should we arm the janitors? Should we get off-duty police? Should we get off-duty military? The goal was this: just arm the school. It doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher. And I do understand not everybody needs a gun if they're not capable of handling one, so to speak, as far as they're not comfortable with it. I'm not asking somebody to do something they're not comfortable with. I said, but we need to arm every school in this state, elementary, middle, and high school. And because here's what happened. On my way to this meeting, I received a call. And that text came from a young lady who was under a desk at Clover High School because it was on lockdown. And as it locked it down, they had suspended a boy the day before. He came back today, was walking straight to his locker. They got him right before he got to his locker, and inside of his locker was the guns to do the same thing. When I said that, I looked over at Sled and said, you're going to find out about this because it's happening right now while we're in here. This is going down while we're in this meeting. And then boys picked up their phone and started scrolling through their phone. They started punching each other and pointing to their phones. In other words, the preacher ain't crazy. You better arm this school. I don't know how, by the grace of God, that South Carolina has dodged a bullet. Because if you saw what walked in the offices of the average pastors in America, you would already wonder, how have we gotten by this far? In other words, our culture has changed. Evil is rising in this world, and you're not going to de-arm the nation. It's just not going to happen. You can keep dreaming that all you want, but we will not comply. Thou shalt not tread on me, and everybody said, amen. We're not going to comply to that. The Second Amendment was given in this country for protection against the enemies, both foreign and domestic. And so we have the right to bear arms here, and you're not going to infringe on that. It shall not be infringed. But what you can do is protect these students as best as humanly possible. When I said that, the governor immediately called a recess, and he called me to his desk, and he spoke with me in private there with his chief of staff, and he said, "Sir, we are in your corner, and I'm going to do my level best to take care of these children." And I think my quote that really, drove a nail, for lack of better terms, in the coffin was this: that we've got a $100 million high school sitting at my church right now, and we have no metal detectors. My church was going to volunteer to buy a $5,000 metal detector. And I told the governor, I said, "Sir, we got 70,000 people sitting up here in the Panther Stadium, and we can check them in less than 30 minutes. In less than 30 minutes, going through a metal detector. There's all kind of precautionaries that we can do in these schools to help protect the school. The problem of it is we have our priorities wrong. We think the priority is send the kid to school, and they get a scholarship to Princeton, to Yale, to Harvard, to Clemson, to Carolina, to Georgia Tech, to Georgia, Duke, Carolina. We think, let's get them a 4.0 average, and let's get them a scholarship and athletic or academic, and that's our priority." I said, "Mr. Governor, that's not our priority. The priority of the school is to bring the child home. Number one priority, bring the child home at the end of the day and not in a body bag," quote. And they literally put that in the state paper. Somebody needed to hear that. What good is your academic scholarship? What good is your athletic scholarship if the mother's got to go identify the son and the daughter in the morgue? What do you say? I got a holy indignation in this, because I do have grandchildren in school now, and you have children. Many of you have grandchildren, and it should set us on fire, the fact that we have no more common sense in this nation, and we want to blame it on a gun. Let's get rid of the guns, and evil will leave. Ladies and gentlemen, evil's not going nowhere. We have to step up and combat evil and be, here's the word for you, proactive, not reactive. Can I get a witness on here? It's just sickening. It's sickening to the bone. And so after that meeting, I want to show you what happened. The governor stepped up, and the legislation stepped up, and they literally armed the schools. And I have to give the hats off to our state that were, if they were behind the ball on certain schools or whatever, however they got it done, they got it done. I don't know that I made a difference, but I do know this. I can sleep good at night. Watch this. And my hands are clean because I said something. If God has given you a voice on a school board, He's given you a voice in the pulpit. He's given you a voice in the PTA, whatever it is. If you're involved in your children's activities at school, you need to go ahead and find out what kind of security measures do we have on this school ground. There was a on-site resource officer in Georgia, and thank God he was there, or this could have got worse than what it was. He is the one that confronted the young man, from what I understand. That could be critiqued, I guess, with all the details still coming out. But from what I understand, it was the officer that was a school officer who combated the guy and had him stand down and then arrested him. So what if the guy wasn't there? This would have continued and gotten worse and worse and worse. And as bad as it is, and if there's any light at all in Georgia, this could have been worse had it not been some officers on the scene. We don't know the details of if he was in the school yet or where the shots were fired from a parking lot or, how that went down yet or how much access he got. But that will come out. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it's school season. And our kids have now walked literally back into a war zone. Parents are praying. The students are praying. The churches are praying for always the safety of faculty and students. And we should. It's just a different world. And this is the world that we now live in, that Jesus is on the way. You say, why would you bring that up? Because it also is an election year. And I want you to hear for just a moment what the reigning Democratic leader that's going to run for president, the leading jack, the laughing hyena Kamala said back in 19. She said these words, that she wants to, demilitarize our school system. In other words, remove all the police, all the guns, no protection for our children. Don't listen to me. Just listen to her. Check this out, and I'll get right back with you.
And so part of my plan is also a reduction of that. And then also, again, what we need to do about demilitarizing our schools and taking police officers out of schools. We need to deal with the reality and speak the truth about the inequities around school discipline.
This is what's wrong with her. This right here. Don't be a jack. We got to take America back. You get that? Church coming soon. Don't be a jack. Take America back. Who in the name of the Lord above thinks like that? What kind of deranged individual? This is derangement. It's insanity that you think I'm just going to demilitarize is the word. In other words, remove our resource officers, remove protection from our children. This is what's coming. This is what you're looking at in November, just as part of the derangement. But when I hear stuff like that, I'm sitting there thinking, who in the world would even think not to protect these children? It is a fantasy world. And you need to let everybody you know the thinking and the mindset of these deranged individuals. I don't know, the most innocent of our culture, the most innocent of our societies are children. And evil doesn't play fair. It doesn't care. It doesn't care if it's an elementary child. It doesn't care if it's a high school student or a college student. These are our children. And if we're going to protect anybody in this nation, we should at least protect them. But let me say it like this, too. The same people who are calling to demilitarize the school system and remove the protection of those children, it's already known they don't care about them no way because they want to murder them in the womb before they're born anyway. These are the most heartless, evil, and wicked people I have ever seen in my lifetime that are in office today. It makes no rational sense. Quit trying to figure them out. Just understand now. I told the church, I was preaching out this past week, and I said, we need to remove the word politics. That pastor's too political. I don't even want to use that word. I don't want to be accused of the word. Here's what we are fighting. Not political Republicans and Democrats and independents. What we're now fighting is evil and good. Good versus evil. And all it takes, as been quoted 1,000 times, 10,000 times over, all it takes for evil to rise is for good men to do nothing. And that's what we're up against. We have good people who believe in God, who understand right from wrong, but yet they do nothing. You say, what can I do? Call your representative. Look at me. When I went around with Aaron's initiative, the school shooting thing, I started with the school safety coordinator. There's a school safety coordinator for your county, for your whole county. And I went to see him, had a private meeting with him, great guy. He understood where we were coming from. I wanted to know what kind of procedures we had in our county. I couldn't speak for the whole state. Then I went to the sheriff's office. The sheriff gladly was behind everything we were doing. We got a great sheriff in our town, and he was behind us 100%. We need to protect these kids. I said, now, sir, I don't know. That's not my line of work. I don't know what we have to do that. But I want you to know we do need it. We have to make sure they're protected. It doesn't have to be a teacher. It doesn't have to be somebody not qualified. But a teacher's fine with me if they want to go through training for it. And if they do go through training for it, let me just go ahead and tell every teacher this. I believe every teacher that went and got that kind of certification and was qualified to do that needs a raise. We need to pay them. You say, well, how are we going to pay them? We quit giving money to Ukraine. How about that one? We keep throwing our money out here to all this mess and start taking care of the home front, and we would see a difference in this nation. Oh, don't get me started. I'm just back for the first time, but I can feel it in my blood. Listen to me. We have wasted more money on foreign entities, and Joe Biden stole $27 million, done been proven by these other countries. We've wasted enough money. We could have secured our schools like Fort Knox. Are you hearing me? This is how bad the system is. And it's not going to get better until God's people, and judgment shall start in the house of God with us, until God's people begin to take a stand and say enough is enough. My heart absolutely goes out for Georgia right now. And I could not imagine the pain of the sheriff's department, of course the parents and the families, but even the community as it gets larger than that. It needs to resonate in our hearts that these are people with families. These are families. These are children that mattered. These are teachers and faculty that had families and children. I saw a coach, one of the faculty members was a coach, had small children. Those children are going to grow up the rest of their life without a father. Why? Because that our governments don't understand the importance of securing the home front. And speaking of securing the home front, you know, last time we talked, we'll move right on. I just wanted to make sure we get this in, make sure you get involved. But last time we talked, we was on the Trump assassination. And after all this stuff has been coming out, they're trying their best to just sweep this under the rug, like he never got shot in the head, in the ear. A 200-yard shot is nothing, of course. And now we're finding out more and more. Well, the Heritage Foundation has got a subsidiary, and that subsidiary is literally now use this social media advertising. So here's how this works. If you're on vacation or you're out of town somewhere, whatever, or you're up in there eating somewhere, you ever notice how these ads come up on your social media? Well, they're tracking you. They're just tracking you. Big Brother's tracking us everywhere we go, and there's not much we can do about it. But they're tracking us, right? So they used the tracking system around the shooter's location, his job at the nursing home, and his home residence. They picked up 9 phone numbers that stayed around his residence and his work. And guess what they did? They tracked those numbers, and they went to a strange place. One of those numbers repeatedly left his location and his work location and was at Washington, D.C., right outside of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, within 1 block of Secret Service and the FBI. How strange is that they tracked the phone numbers? You guys in South Carolina remember Alec Murdaugh. Remember that? How they pinged his phone as it moved? They can do the same thing with advertisements to show where them phone numbers are going, moving, and trafficking back and forth. And this one showed up in Washington. Check this video out. It's about a 3-minute clip, but it's worth your time to see this just for a moment.
Project is a division of the Heritage Foundation, and they released what may or may not be a blockbuster today. And Steve Baker is here to break down all of the details for us. So, Steve, we saw the story earlier, and you have everything that we need to know about it. So tell us.
Well, we did speak to a spokesman from the Oversight Project at the Heritage Foundation today, immediately after this came out. What they are doing is essentially whether FBI is doing it or not, they're not telling us that they're actually involved in this. This is not some sort of secret technology. It's nothing new. We've learned a lot about this even in the January 6th trials about how they're able to track people's cell phones. But see, this is not just law enforcement or government agencies that do this. This is Google. This is, when you walk into a boot store in Nashville, they're going to track you, and then you start getting these ads. It's called Ad ID. Every single one of our phones, our cell phones, have essentially what is the same and the equivalency to your Social Security number. And so once they identify that phone, then they can pretty much track that phone wherever it goes. So here is the gist of what Oversight has discovered through their own tracking, is they were able to ping and identify about 9 different phones at the home of the shooter. The kid, the 20-year-old Crooks. And so they were able to identify which of those phones were then going to his place of business where he works at the nursing home. So after they identify that and make sure that they've got the right ID there for that, now they can track it everywhere else it goes. Well, they followed it to the fairgrounds there, Butler County, where the rally was with Trump, where Trump was shot, and unfortunately other injuries and deaths as well. So what they discovered was that this kid was basically doing recon at that site on July 4th and July 8th. So they were able to track him. But they also learned, and this is very interesting, so this tells us either how smart this kid is or something else, is that he turned his phone off after the 12th, or at least shut down all of the apps on his phone so he couldn't be tracked on the day itself.
Interesting.
But it gets better than that.
Oh, keep going.
Well, it does, because in the process of looking at all of these phones that visited his home and visited the nursing home where he worked, they found a phone that actually pinged 7 or 8 times in D.C. at a building called a Gallery Place, which has a very large footprint of FBI offices and where source meetings and interviews regularly take place in the coffee shop of that particular building.
Yeah, and we can see that on the screen right now. So right now we could just say it's circumstantial evidence, but if these are the phones that have been linked to Thomas Crooks and his family and everybody else in there, then this could potentially be something. But don't worry, you guys. The FBI is telling us that they are investigating the matter. We have nothing to fear, right, Steve?
Nothing at all. I mean, obviously, there are many, many non-nefarious reasons why somebody would be at that building in D.C., and indeed there are. But it's very curious, and it's something that we are going to look at. As a matter of fact, Oversight Project has blessed us and given us the data on this so that we can apply our own resources to this as well and assist them in tracking this down.
Interesting is an understatement. How in the world, or what is the coincidence? I mean, let's just put it this way. To my knowledge, nobody from Washington has been at my house repeated times. They haven't been to the church repeated times that I know of. What are the odds that somebody from Washington, 1 block from the FBI office, the Secret Service offices, would show up at the shooter's house? Pretty interesting, huh? Man, I wish they had 4 or 5 talking heads on this thing so we could just kind of sharpen iron a little bit. But the math just doesn't add up. I mean, I'm no rocket scientist. I'm no brilliant guy. I'm just a common sense kind of guy. But that is just too much right there. And you know what's going on right now? Nobody's talking about it. But like the young lady in the interview there said, but the FBI is looking into it, so we're all safe, right? We're all good, right? So we don't have a thing to worry about. They got it under control. They're looking into it, and I'm sure they're going to find out what was the connection there between where that phone number went and how it showed up at the boy's house and his job. So the Trump assassination, of all things, is just swept under the roof. I called this repeatedly, that these people, they don't want the presidency. They want the kingdom. And I truly believe they're not going to stop until they get whatever they want. Now, having said that, we are now approaching November. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm going to tell you something. There is a buzz in the air right now. Something is up. Something's up, and we cannot put our fingers on it. One of the things I've been noticing was that for a while now, this has been going on, but nobody talks about why or what it's about. Number one, there is fencing and a wall being erected around the United States Capitol, and I believe the Supreme Court is in this too. The public no longer has access to walk on the lawn from every vantage point into the Capitol. Why would you be securing an 8-foot fence with concertina wire where you can't scale the fence around the Capitol? Why would you go through this amount of effort unless you are expecting something? Anybody on here expecting something? I believe the whole nation, with any common sense, is expecting something on Election Day. The second thing that's going on, leading up to today, was the military has been in New York City, stationed in hotels. We don't know why. Nobody can answer. There's several videos out here on this. You can go look it up for yourself. Why is the military in New York? They want to use the immigrant crisis. They want to use, I don't know, but they've taken over hotels. Trump was supposed to be sentenced on the 18th, but word came out today that has now been postponed to November. It's been postponed to November 26th, 27th, something like that. And after the election. But here's what I want you to understand. He has yet to be sworn in. So he hasn't been sworn in until January. So legally, Sleepy Joe will still be sleeping on the job until January when he's sworn in. We're watching the tremors, if you will. You know, before these earthquakes happen, you can feel the tremors. There's these seismographic machines that'll tell you something's not right. This is not normal. And there's a lot of not normal activity that is going on. I'm noticing they're already talking now about Russia collusion. Here we go again, Russia collusion. And then last week, my schedule's been full. I've been preaching on the road a lot. And but a church friend called me and had to cancel the meeting and said that they're going to reschedule. And do you know what the reason for that was? The church had gotten COVID. And they've had to pull back because so many people got it. We haven't heard of COVID since 20. It's been spotty here or there. But now I'm hearing more people talk about it again. And I think we all learned a lesson last time when they locked us down and we couldn't get toilet paper. That's not happening again. Somebody put in the comment section, we will not comply. The church is essential. We're not shutting the church back down. We're not going to be being mandated. We can't assemble. That's not going to happen. You know, how's that say? Fool me once, shame on me, or you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It ain't happening twice. So as we're approaching this election, we're going to see more tremors. Fence around the Capitol. Military in New York. Something's up. Something is absolutely on the rise. And tonight, while we're gathered here, the church is feeling this. Here's two things that could be happening. We could be feeling the tremors of an uprising through an election. We could be feeling the tremors that Jesus is on the way. I would be satisfied with the latter, even tonight. I've never lived in an age like this. Every pastor's learning. Every pastor's trying to navigate. The churches everywhere are under attack. Pastors are under attack. Their families under attack. The church body itself is facing things we never have. But here is some good news in this. The Bible was clear when it said for the children of God, when we see all of these things happening. You say, why the Georgia shooting? That's a Noah day. Violence in the land. Days of Noah and days of Lot are right before our eyes. And why is those things happening on the immoral spectrum? We've been dealing with, since we've been on this podcast, with the whole LGBT, QRSTY, IUV, everything they can think of. That's Lot days. He said Lot and Noah's days would come, basically the two would be resurrected. And I really believe that the violence we're seeing and all of the immorality that we're watching is just a pointing to the cross, that Jesus is the answer, but he's also on the way. We're watching Israel in an upheaval. This war continues, and it's growing. It's going now into Lebanon, seriously. There's a lot of factors that are on the table. And I want you to understand, if you're listening tonight and you got your family around you, never before do you need to be more faithful to God than you are tonight. We're in very uncertain times, but a very certain God is in control. This has not caught him off guard. This has not caught him in heaven with anxiety. He knows the end from the beginning. Our steps are ordered by the Lord. And we understand that his imminent return is at hand. My biggest fear for this generation is that they were not raised the way that we were raised. They were not brought up with the skill set of our generation. Many of this younger crowd that are here today, and I'm talking about guys in their 20s, I'm talking about guys in their 30s, survival instincts is not in them. They were not taught. This raised them. This is all they know. So as things progress, as things heated up, I'm a firm believer that you ought to be prepared. And as we've been doing even this year, in the early part of this year, preparing our people for any kind of uncertainty. When they started locking that fence down, and it's been going on for a while, keep putting that thing up. It's big area they're covering. That's a statement. It's a statement that you're expecting something. Why would you put that up? I mean, people normally just walking through the Capitol. What are you expecting? That should be a question as to why are you doing this? They want to say, well, the Trump people, the Trump people are going to try to replicate a January 6th insurrection. No, that never was an insurrection to start with. You really don't want to see one of those. We had one of them in 1776. So you don't want to see an insurrection. But what I will say is, and we're not inciting violence, what we are going to tell you is we're going to protect the freedoms that I have written on this wall over here if it costs us our life. We're going to protect those freedoms. So America is headed down a road that she's never seen before. I believe that if God were to allow this election to go smoothly and say Trump was to get in, there is a road ahead. But it would simply be that God, in his wrath, where America deserves that, for what they have done to God, he remembered mercy. He literally put the brakes on pouring his wrath out on this nation. We've killed millions of babies. We have thrown marriage in the tank. We have forgotten God. We don't want God. We want nothing to do with God. And so therefore, America has told God, we don't want you any longer. It's only by his sheer mercy and grace. He hasn't obliterated this nation. After everything that he did to set us free from the tyranny of Great Britain, to give us the freedoms of religion and the freedoms to speak and the freedoms that we have to preach the gospel, freedom of religion, we have in turn done him nothing but wrong while he's done us nothing but good. We deserve whatever judgment he brings on us. But if we can beg God for a 2 Chronicles 7:14, America needs a literal reviving across this nation. It does my heart good to a degree to see the nation waking up to a degree from every culture, from Asian, Hispanic, white, black, all races, waking up and seeing the true colors of some of this evil that's in our land. It's almost sounding like one voice. It's not there yet, but I'm hearing the echoes of one voice in many platforms that people are seeing what is right and what is wrong. And America has gone so far wrong, she's got to turn back. I believe we're living in the most crucial election year we've ever had. I'm going to tell you this. Whether you vote early, whether you vote on that day, vote. And when you vote, don't vote alone. You need to think about 10 people that ain't never voted, and you need to take them with you. Pastors, you need to preach values, biblical values of how we vote. You need to explain to your people what is the biblical values of voting. We're going to be judged on this. We're going to be judged on who we elected to rule our nation. And when the wicked are in rule, the righteous grieve. We mourn. And when these wicked are in ruling, it's killing everything that we know. Someone would get into office and say, let's just jeopardize every child we got and just remove all safety precautions of police officers and armed security around our kids. The insanity has to stop. But tonight, I wanted to get on here for a little bit and bring a few things for you to think about as we're in the home stretch. We're down now. November is D-Day, and we better invade the enemy unlike a force America's never seen. I don't want you to sit back and think this is a shoo-in, because it tends to show every poll that Trump is, out front. But I'm not going to use that. We've already been through 2020. We know what can happen when you go to bed and wake up the next morning. We don't want to see that. So what we need to become is recruiters, righteous recruiters. Put that in the chat. We need to be righteous recruiters. Do we vote the values of God? Trump is not our hope. Jesus is our hope. He's just the president. And hopefully will be the one in November. Can he fix all this mess? No. 10 presidents from now that are righteous cannot fix all this. This thing is so far gone that we are literally in survival mode. I don't know how long it's going to take to get to thriving mode, but we're literally in surviving mode. And if we don't do something this time around, I believe the hope of this nation is far gone on the economic and social and religious platform. You say, but the Lord said. I want to speak to these hyper theologians who tend to say, well, the church is going to be fine, and the church is always going to be. I get that. But I want to remind you of my good friend David, who was a second-generation Chinese. We all have to agree that our brothers and sisters are in Iraq, Afghanistan, Russia. They are in China. They are in communist Korea, and they are being murdered and beheaded for their faith. They're in Africa facing the Muslims and all of those regimes down there that are killing them by the thousands. Is America any better than them? Does God love us more than he loves them? That was David's question to me. The answer is no. Then how do you not know If God's people don't stand up for righteousness now, he may give us in our apathy and our sleep what we deserve, his wrath. He may give us what we don't want, and we may lose our freedom of religion. We may lose our freedom to bear arms. We may lose our freedom of speech. We may lose every amendment right we have after this election, because I don't believe there's no going back. This is the U.S. Patriot Pastor tonight, signing on with you. It's good to be back. Look up our fellas there at Chosen Comfort and let them take care of that heating and air situation you got. We want to thank you all for being a part of this podcast. Share this up. We've got a lot coming up. I've got a segment coming up looking at the college world. I've got a group and a roundtable discussion that's coming in. And these students are going to tell you what's happening on the grounds of our college campuses and what God is trying to do, but what they're faced with in a new world that you're paying for, Mom and Dad. I want you to hear what's happening. That segment's coming up soon, but it's good to be back with you tonight. We hope to see you again right here on God's Country Podcast. Hit the share button. Tell a friend we're on tonight and shoot this over to them and check them out as we're going forward. Check us in to somebody or talk to somebody. Share this up. Let them know God's Country is back. We love you tonight. God bless you.